Hi friends, Mark here, mental health therapist, back with another mental health video. Today we are going to be talking about emotional regulation. Now you may be thinking, Mark, what does emotional regulation even mean? Well, basically, emotional regulation is a fancy way of saying that whenever we have a really strong emotion like anger or fear or sadness or even joy, we are still able to think and choose the way we act instead of letting that emotion make us react in a way that might be harmful or inappropriate to that situation. For example, when we're angry, emotional regulation lets us stop ourselves before we hit something or break something or yell and scream at the top of our lungs. Likewise, when we're really sad, emotional regulation allows us to stop ourselves from crying in that moment and waiting for a more appropriate time, maybe when we're alone or with somebody we trust, in order to let those emotions out. In other words, emotional regulation allows us to stop and choose the way we want to behave when we feel a really strong emotion. So how does emotional regulation actually work? I'm going to put up a picture of our brain here and walk you through it. That blue part in the middle is called our amygdala, and it is our threat detection system. So it scans the environment, and if it detects a threat, it starts sending signals to the back part of our brain, the animal brain, that tells us to get ready to react. So that red part of our brain, the hindbrain or the animal brain, basically gets us ready to fight, run away, or freeze up in the face of a threat. The problem with this whole system is that the amygdala doesn't always know the difference between a bear chasing us in the forest, or our husband or wife yelling at us, or our kids making a mess. So it triggers our fight or flight response and can cause us to react in a way that is completely inappropriate to the actual situation. That purple part of our brain at the front is where emotional regulation actually happens, our prefrontal cortex, or the smart brain. It allows us to choose to respond in a way that is appropriate instead of reacting from our hindbrain. However, if our hindbrain fully activates our fight or fight response, then the front part of our brain, that smart brain, stops working. And then we can no longer make choices about how we want to act and how we want to behave. Instead, we will react as if our very survival is on the line. So how do we actually increase our emotional regulation abilities? The first step is really simple, but often the hardest one, which is basically just to eat healthy, sleep well, and get plenty of exercise. The next step is to increase our emotional vocabulary. That is, learn more words to describe our emotions beside the main ones like fear, anger, joy, happiness, sadness, and things like that. The more words that we know to describe our emotions, the easier it is to think about them and control them when they happen. You can use a chart like this to learn more about emotion words, or something like the emotion wheel, which you can Google to find more information about. Another thing we can do is learn how our body responds to emotion. Think about the last time you were angry, and then think about how your body felt. Maybe you had a really hot face, or your shoulders were really tense. Maybe your heart beat really quickly. Right? These are just some physical signs that we're experiencing a really intense emotion. Right? Sadness, maybe you feel like you want to cry, or you feel a heavy weight on your chest, or things like that. You can use a chart like this to show on your body and help you learn more about what your physical signs of emotions are. When we know more about how our body reacts to emotion, which often happens before we even realize we're feeling something, the more we can catch our emotions before it fully activates our fight or flight response. We can also change the way we feel by changing the way we think. This is called the CBT Triangle. That means cognitive behavioral therapy triangle. The idea here is that when we encounter a trigger, such as a driver cutting us off in traffic, we have an automatic thought, such as that driver is an idiot. That thought leads to emotions like anger, which then leads us to change our behavior, like speeding up to pull up beside that driver and yell at him through our window. CBT, this triangle, tells us that we can stop ourselves from that cycle by changing the way we think. So, the driver cuts us off in traffic. We have the automatic thought that that driver is an idiot, and then we take a moment to think something different. We change our thought. We think to ourselves, learning to drive must be really scary. I remember making mistakes when I was a new driver. Then that changes the way we feel, right? Maybe we feel more compassionate to that person. And then that changes our behavior. So instead of pulling up beside that person and yelling, we just go on our way and drive normally. Finally, you want to practice self-soothing. Self-soothing means walking away from the situation that has given you an emotion and calming yourself using activities that involve all 5 of your senses. You might want to refer to the previous video about relaxation for more in-depth ideas on how to do this. The more senses you engage in an activity, the better it's going to be at soothing yourself. For example, if you drink a hot cup of tea, you get the smell from the tea, you get the taste from the tea, and the temperature from the cup as you hold it. These are 3 of your senses that you've engaged now, and that's going to bring your stress levels and your emotional level down. Other things like reading a book, listening to music, taking a bath or a warm shower, these are all things that engage your senses in a way that's going to calm yourself and relax that hindbrain from triggering your fight or flight response. Thank you for watching my video, everyone. That's it for me today. I hope you all take care of yourself and you've learned a little bit about emotional regulation. Bye now.